Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm your host, and I really think this one you're going to enjoy. This is a return of John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, and on this one, I'm interviewing Superintendent of Cobram Barooga Golf Club down on the Murray River, Terry Vogel. Now, I am really excited to bring this one to you, and I'm quickly just going to give you a little bit of an idea. When I went down there, I was down there with John Deere Golf for the Women in Turf program, the initiative that's supported by John Deere, and it's also supported by, I have to mention, NView and the Australian Sports Turf Managers Association, the ASTMA. They're all working together on this one. But I was down there with John Deere Golf for the Women in Turf program, and part of that allowed me to sit down on site in the office with Terry Vogel to have a chat with him for an episode of John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, and that's what this one is. It's going to be, I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's a good yarn, and we went straight into it. I literally arrived on the Tuesday, and I think it was within an hour, we went straight into Terry's office and sat down, set everything up, and we got straight into this interview. So you'll hear that I hadn't even seen the property yet. I didn't know the property at that time, and afterwards I got to go around and spent quite a bit of time travelling around, taking photos, videos, and talking to lots of the team members, including all the women that were involved in the Women in Turf program, and it was really great to be able to do that. But I just wanted to tell you, I had literally no time, so I didn't see any of the course, and you'll hear that in the discussion, in the interview. One of the things I also mentioned that you'll hear, and I have to say this because it's a little bit unfair on my part, I refer to Cobram Barooga Golf Club probably unfairly as Cobram, in short. And that's a little bit unfair because Cobram Barooga Golf Club is actually in the township of Barooga, which is on the New South Wales side of the Murray River. And I just wanted to mention that because I just shorten it to Cobram, Aussie thing to do, right? We shorten everything to the first word or the first syllable. And I just thought it would. It's a little bit unfair of me. So when you hear me say Cobram, I'm saying Cobram Barooga Golf Club. It was my way of shortening it, and I had to preface that in this episode because I thought I was being a little bit unfair to the township of Barooga, which are the home technically of Cobram Barooga Golf Club, and I thought it was important to clear that one up. Now, Terry is a fantastic guest. And again, this is me prefacing this conversation a little bit because I want you to really have your ears on in this one. Terry's a fantastic human. He's a wonderful individual, and he was so generous with his time, like I've had with everyone that's ever been part of this podcast series on the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. And Terry is another person, and he's such a genuine, down-to-earth bloke, and I really enjoyed my conversation with Terry. And we go into, Terry opens up about a lot of things, a lot of personal things. He shares so many great parts of his life, his career, his journey, his working career, his family life, and it's something that really comes across, and I want you to have your ears on, and I really think that you're going to enjoy it. I felt really at home sitting down with Terry and chat. It was like I was in his house. We were sitting in the lounge room or something, really just chatting away. It was unreal. He took me to another place there so quickly because he's that type of person, and I really enjoyed it. And he's a family man. He's a man from the country, from the bush, from a regional part of this country. He's just such a down-to-earth, genuine bloke. So, and Terry is very open about so much of what he's done and his personal life, and leading the team, maintaining such a sensational property at Cobram Barooga Golf Club, does a wonderful job in doing so. And when I say Terry's open with his personal thoughts, and you're going to hear him, he expresses and explains the thought processes about how he goes through things. And you're going to hear a lot about those thought processes from Terry. And these are the things that I've found personally, through family, through friends, but also chatting with Terry, that you hear a lot of the hardships, you hear about what it's like with life in the country, in regional areas, the challenges of different things, and even the challenges of the working environment. So you're going to hear all that kind of stuff, and it's really, I think you're going to get a lot out of this, and a real good, deep insight into another workplace and the way that Terry does things. And it's fantastic. I really, listening back through this, and it brought a smile to my face every time I hear Terry talk about his family. He talks about his wife. He talks about his kids. And I got so much out of it, and it was great to sit down with Terry. I know you will enjoy it. And I look forward to hearing feedback from all the listeners out there. And it's a big thank you to Terry for sitting down and taking the time with me. Now, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, it's John Deere Golf, keeper of the greens. And I'm sharing with you John Deere Golf's commitment to the industry, to our greenkeeping industry. They are supporting you out there. They're supporting our industry. They're being involved. And obviously this Women in Turf program is a big key part of that they're involved with. Like I said, in partnership with Envio and with the ASTMA, they're involved all together. And John Deere Golf, they'll work with you to move your game forward together. And the game relies on your team's passion and professionalism, which is why you can trust John Deere for a wide range of advanced equipment and dedicated support. They've been around since 1987 in this game, and they've built a tradition of trust and excellence on golf courses all over the world. When you work where others play, you need a partner you can trust to keep your course in perfect condition, and John Deere Golf can help with top quality machines and support, forward-thinking technology, and their ongoing commitment to this incredible game. That's why I've partnered with John Deere. You hear me talk about it with this partnership that I have with John Deere and how excited I am by it, their continued support with me and them showing their continued support with you and the industry. So make sure you reach out and connect with the people at John Deere. Don't forget to go to their website and you can go and find your local John Deere dealer who's got everything you need to keep your investment running like clockwork. Make sure you go and check them out at deere.com.au. That's deere.com.au. And thanks once again to John Deere for their ongoing support with the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast on this segment, Keeper of the Greens. Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode number 108. G'day, Terry. How are you?
G'day, Steve.
Thank you for joining me, mate. Is this your cup of tea?
Yeah. Well, not really. And it's right in the middle of our biggest event. But, hey, that's what it's all about.
No, that's it, mate. Down here for the Women in Turf program, and obviously I'm part of working with John Deere on this one, so the Women in Turf program for our greenkeeping industry, and it's great to see it. We've got some volunteers here.
Yep.
And we're going to get into that. Obviously, we're going to talk about your career, your greenkeeping career.
Yep.
Long established career that you've got, a wealth of experience. We're going to talk about Cobram, learn a little bit about that too, mate.
Yep.
And I'm really excited to be here. I love doing the ones in person, mate. So fantastic. Thank you for joining in. And we start off with Steve Super 7. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard the podcast before. No, you probably haven't.
I listened to one with Sophie recently.
Okay, so, there you go. So we've got a little bit of fun. Multiple choice. You're flying blind into these. There's a reason for that because it's meant to be just a little bit of fun. Off the top of your head. Don't mind if you want to elaborate a little bit of answers and hearing a little bit of reasoning behind it. But, mate, let's go. Steve Super 7. Number 1, sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Sunrise?
Yeah.
What's it like here on the Murray?
Oh, look, it's always hot in the summer. So the mornings are beautiful, and even when the sun's setting, it's hot. Yesterday was 40 degrees, and it was still 38 at sort of 7 o'clock at night. So beautiful sun. Beautiful and fresh in the mornings.
Wow, fantastic. You need it to be fresh in the morning.
Well, the turf always looks better in the morning than in the afternoon until the very, very late shadows because it always looks a bit burnt out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And you're prepping for a tournament. We'll jump in here. You're prepping for the WebEx Players Series Murray River.
Yep.
You've done that a couple of times, and we're going to talk about that at length here. So we'll throw some temps and bits and pieces as we go because these are the challenges getting into tournament prep. Number 2. Your own personal choice here. I'd like to hear about this one. Dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course?
Not
necessarily what the club has you doing. This is what you'd like to do.
No, I'd say allowed, but the guys, we look after ovals as well. And the local township uses our ovals as the off-leash dog park. They're not so keen for the obvious reasons.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough. Number 3, stripes or no stripes on fairways, mate. This one's always an interesting one for people.
No stripes, because if you start in the dark, it's very hard to see the angles sometimes.
That's an interesting point.
And because we work as a team to try and get in front of golfers at this tournament and other times, it's easy to do the shadow cut. Yeah, okay. Very good. Very good.
Now, this is a new one that I've thrown in the mix. Curious to know. Painted whole lips or not painted?
We do it twice a year. We have the National Associates Championship on one course. We paint those.
Right.
And this WebEx we paint because apparently that's what you do at a tournament. So we do it too.
That's it. You've been dragged into it.
Well,
we do it as well.
I guess it's something we could do all the time, but it's just something that we just don't do. I don't know. Or maybe I should. I don't know.
I'm just. This is just a point of discussion, mate. I like to hear the answers.
There is some theory that it helps the edge stay together better.
That's an interesting one.
So perhaps that's what it is. But
could be something there.
We haven't done it because we just haven't done it. I'm not anti.
There's no right or wrong.
No.
This is all about learning and listening. That's fantastic.
It probably adds half an hour or more to a hole change each time.
Yeah, it
more.
does.
So 2 minutes a hole, you're up over half an hour.
Exactly, and a lot of those little details. It's funny you say that because you think about going out to having to change holes.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you might add 60 seconds or 90 seconds per hole, and people go, but it's only a minute, right?
Yeah.
That's 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you put that on a day,
yeah,
you've thrown everything out already.
I don't have this religious time frame that it should take because I guess it takes as long as it takes. You don't know what you're dealing with, and if you just said, well, that's going to take another 40 minutes every time, it's maybe you don't have that time.
It's interesting to look at it in those regards sometimes. Number 5, mate, your favourite grass variety. This is a turfy question.
Look, when I started greenkeeping, we had all cool season fairways, and the stripes you could get off that were incredible.
Yeah,
cool season grass.
Yep.
Never got a scalp, so cool season.
Cool season.
Difficult on the Murray, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'd much prefer cool season, but it's not possible.
I've heard some interesting stories from eons time gone on the Murray. Bent grass fairways and that sort of stuff as well, right?
I know Yarrawonga were probably the first adopters, or Tokemore, just down the road, both clubs just down the road. Yarrawonga started, and I'm pretty sure there was a petition went in to stop the couch grass program because they hated the brown colour in the winter.
There you go, okay.
And then our neighbours said, the members that went there, it's too short to hit off the couch grass. But it's a necessary grass. We can't do without it. The way water is in the climate, it's just what it is.
And you do get very heavy frosts in winter.
Oh, correct.
So it goes brown.
We recently had the country superintendents meeting here for Victoria, and we were going to do a little bit of greening up, and we decided, no, let's just show everyone what a fair dinkum Murray River couch looks like, and it was straw white.
Yeah, wow. That's interesting.
Heavy frosts, and we just thought, no, we'd rather people see what that's what it is rather than doing any pigments and stuff. So.
Very, very good to hear, mate. Number 6. Don't know what your thoughts are on this one. Again, this has been put in new ones in the mix to think of. A preferred style of golf course. So multiple choice. New South Wales Golf Club on the cliffs over Sydney. Mm-hmm. Royal Adelaide, the beautiful contrast in the middle of the country in a dry landscape. And Joondalup, the resort-style wild features and the quarry course and the lakes and the dunes over on the west coast of Australia. What are your thoughts there? Have you got a preference?
Look, I would go Royal Adelaide because it's the only one of the 3 that I've played personally, and I've played it a little bit.
Yep.
There's a contrast just in the 18 holes itself.
Yep.
It goes from one style to the next a little bit. But I'm a very traditionalist. I love Mackenzie style of courses, if you like.
Yep.
And I think it's still got a good mixture of a few trees and some open stuff and whatever. So Royal Adelaide for me.
Very good. That seems to be popular too. There's no doubt about it. Number 7. Which golf course in Australia? I'm okay. This may need a little bit of time. Which golf course in Australia would you like to visit tomorrow, and why? And it could be for any reason. You want to play it, or you want to go and see it, or it might be nostalgic. It could be anything, anywhere you might think of.
I don't play the amount of golf that I used to.
Yep.
But one of the courses that when I went to Queensland a couple of years ago that I was disappointed I didn't get the chance to coordinate was Bonville. It just looks spectacular, and it was sort of going to suit, and it didn't. And I just thought that's probably one course that I'd get out of bed to play.
Yeah, okay, up the north coast of New South Wales. Up
just the way they the pictures you see of it, it just looks really striking. Massive trees, and it's just something out of the box to me. It's just something that I would probably think, yep, that's one I'd probably go and play.
It is a pretty special part of the world, mate. I can tell you, I've played it a number of times, thankfully, and it is. No,
probably doesn't suit. Like the modern theme now is to try and strip courses back a bit, and that's fine. Yep. I mean, if that's what you like and that, but. I'm a bit of a traditionalist with trees and stuff as well.
Yep.
So some people would say traditionalist is no trees.
Yeah, well, they often
that's
will.
What would say now, the early golf courses didn't have them, etc., and that's fine. That's the style. But, I think I'd like to see that one.
Yeah, no. Yep. Very, very good choice. I don't think anyone's picked that one yet. Fantastic, mate. Always good to hear. That's Steve Super 7, mate. So thank you, Terry. That's always interesting to hear your thoughts on those questions, and people will compare with their own thoughts, which is also a bit of fun.
Yep.
Now let's move to, and I will say that we know that you're prepping for the WebEx. So if we get interrupted, there's things got to go. You got to take off. We'll edit those bits and pieces where we can.
Yep.
take us back to the beginning. I don't know much about your career apart from you're here now at Cobram, right?
Yeah.
For the WebEx. So,
yeah.
can you take us back to how you got into the career of greenkeeping, how it first began for you, and then take us through your career to this point?
Okay, so my brother, it's the stereotypical story of hitting a stick around the front lawn. So my brother was keen and he went out with his uncle, and then Santa Claus brought some golf clubs for us.
Okay.
So my brother and my dad and I just jumped on the course because we knew nothing about it and just played a series of holes over and over on Christmas Day.
Yep.
And then sort of golf became our life. My dad was just obsessed with anything he was doing, but you could only do one thing. So fishing disappeared out of our life.
Yep.
And now we just golf every night after work, just non-stop. He'd get angry if we didn't go with him, and all that. So anyway, so that led to becoming a decent sort of golfer, and then you know, I was no scholar or didn't really enjoy the school experience much. I was pretty much a loner, and you know, you just think, oh, I'm happy to get out. And my mother was sick of making me do homework, so a job came available here at Cobram Barooga Golf Club because I'm born and raised in this area.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. Is your golf growing up, is that regional or metropolitan?
I've never lived out of Cobram or Barooga.
Right, so you're a local,
I'm
proper.
Local. There's not too many locals, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, right, okay, wow.
So then, you know, a job became available here, but unfortunately I didn't realise it was for bowling green. So I spent the first 4 years of my life as a bowling greenkeeper, which is fine. It teaches you to be very finicky and finer detail, which was great. Then I was able to come onto the crew as a groundsman. Right. And then, you know, it sort of evolved for a couple of years, and then the head greenkeeping job became available in the bowling green, so I thought, well, everyone's trying to advance a little bit. So I went and did that, and look, that sort of nearly destroyed my love of greenkeeping a little bit, because it's a difficult job because people don't appreciate, like any turf, it's such a small patch, and if you're struggling a little bit, you can't just think, oh, well, the rest of it's really good.
Yeah,
just there's a little bit of a problem.
It's all focus is only
and look, amazing amount of weekend work.
Right.
And then, look, the golf club had struggled for years. Once poker machines came into Victoria, and we had a pretty strong competitor that struggled for a while, so the Super at the time decided he'd move on to better places, and they just sort of recruited from the crew, and I went into a bit of a process with another guy, and anyway, I got it. He wasn't very happy about that, so that made it a bit difficult, so that he became my 2IC, which is a little bit, you know, that's what clubs do.
That's right. That's that.
Which is, you know, being kind to everyone, of course. And then, so, you know, there was probably a bit of a grace period, and then, you know, the millennium drought hit, and, you know, there wasn't a lot of water. I used to get told things by the manager like, the well's only got so much water in it, meaning money. Do whatever you like, just don't spend any money. So then you just become obsessed with, oh no, what am I going to do now? Because I haven't got any money. Can't fix that. The club became profitable again, but we didn't spend anything. That was how it became profitable.
Yeah. So you were already not doing anything.
Machinery breaking down.
Kept not doing anything.
Anyone left, they didn't get replaced.
Yeah.
The one message that he did say to me, he said, if you can manage the place with your arse hanging out of your pants, you can do anything. And I think that's a fair enough statement that yes, and there's hundreds of greenkeepers in Australia that are doing it tough budget-wise that do an amazing job at their places. And that's no slight against the Sandbelt or the Tier 1s or Group 1s and that sort of stuff. They just do an amazing job of keeping their own gear going, getting the grass cut and providing something for those members in those small places.
It's funny because my career was in a small-ish regional in the Blue Mountains, and the club's not a lot of money as time wore on. It's funny you say that about if you can do it with your arse hanging out, you can sort of do anything.
Yes.
Because I used to say to my guys, and before we had a developer into ours, I used to get told the same things. Don't spend money. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. And I'd say to my team, I would be like, it's getting harder. Right, it's getting harder. We don't have a lot. We can't do this. That's got to wait. Yes. Everything has a priority. Get in priority, and unfortunately, we can't do it. And we got to a point where I'd say, if we got to things being taken away, you get to a point where if they had to take your machines away, we would, as greenkeepers, we would find a way to mow the grass with scissors.
Yeah,
you would just find a way,
and that's
have to do. You learn that skill to be able to do whatever you can.
You know, working incredibly long hours yourself because you don't get paid overtime and they do.
They're the things you just do off a drop of a hat, right?
Yeah, so then, you know, it sort of it went along and the writing was on the wall for me, as it is for most superintendents, and it only takes one election and that person that you've been arguing with for years becomes the captain or whoever. But, I was called in and they said, look, we're not happy with how we're going, and the lasting comment was, we think you're too nice a bloke with the fellas. And I said, well, thank you, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
But they said, we want you to stay on the crew, though, because this is your club and this is your life and we want you to stay on the team. So I basically took a step back and a new superintendent came along.
Right.
So, we've had an unusual mix of supers, but I'm not going to go into that.
Sure.
That doesn't matter.
No.
So I just sort of stayed in the crew for a while and offered what I could. And, of course, like every human being, there's a bit of a black cloud hanging. And it's probably more prominent these days that, you should stick your hand up if things aren't going great.
Yep.
So I was a pretty good golfer at that stage and had achieved a pretty high level, but nothing recognised, just, a good player in the country. So my wife is a beautiful person and she said, why don't you go and play golf in Melbourne that you couldn't do, because I'd had 2 children during this sort of millennium drought tough period, and that was sort of through the early 2000s when the whole joint was drought affected, and that's when you just sort of get to emotion.
Everything's
think, pretty tough to take. You think, what do you really want from me?
Yeah, what else can I do? You can't control Mother Nature, right?
So I decided that I'd picked up the Golf in Victoria magazine, and it had said that if you get in the top 10 of the Ivo Witten rankings, you automatically invited to the state team to try out. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to have a go. So I flogged myself around Victoria for 2 years.
Wow.
Played in everything that I could. And I'm not sure because I don't pay any of the bills, but I think we nearly went broke at the time because I got a fair pay cut.
Yep.
And then I got in that squad because I finished second in the rankings in Victoria.
Wow.
So then I got in that squad and I worked out quickly that I was a fat, unfit old man because I turned up at Riversdale 3 days before the Riversdale Cup. So one of the major tournaments and the only way to get in the team was to do well in these events. We did a series of squats and things and a bit of punishment push-ups because you lost a chipping comp.
Yeah, righto.
I couldn't move for 3 days. So then I drove down there and I finally felt better on the first and then played reasonable. I didn't do anything remarkable.
Yeah.
And then luckily we had a major event here at Cobram, was the sort of end-of-year selection event as well, and then the team was named the next year. So I got a tap on the shoulder to say, keep doing what you're doing really well. So I didn't make it that year, but then, of course, I was still in the squad again, invited through, and then I got put in the state team, which to me was like, wow, I'm now a state player at 40 years old.
That's a big deal, right?
And look, I was very clear in that, because there was a bit of an article and a few probably said, look, they've just picked a bit of a token. And I just made sure that I said that, look, there's a dozen people could have had that spot, but I'm very happy they picked me.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. And I've got to give a lot of credit. Some of the golfers they're sort of labelled as arrogant, the young fellas, arrogant. And look, some of them are, but they don't do it on purpose. But once you get into know that people, they're really lovely fellas.
That's like a game face type thing, maybe?
Yeah, and they accepted me for what I was, even though that I was I was twice their age, most of them. But you respect people by beating them on the playing field, and fairly beating them. That's not like it's not doing something. It's just I think they respected your game because you could. So I was really lucky for 4 years. I got to play interstate series golf.
Wow, 4 years! That's awesome.
So I got 4 years out of it. Like I said, I don't know how much money we had when I was finished.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's probably going in too depth. My dad turned up and he said, how are you going with your housing loan one day? And I said, not very well. And he was a bit shocked.
Yep.
And I thought, but that helped me out of a hole. Like it sort of had to happen. And to my credit, Jackie never said, look, you've got to stop. We can't. The kids went to relatives to stay somewhere, overnight and all that sort of stuff. So they made pretty big sacrifices for me.
Yep.
But anyway, so that rolled on. And after 2 years of interstate golf, the manager, and there's a bloke named Brian Lasky, was brilliant. It didn't matter who you were, he treated everyone the same. It didn't matter whether you were the number one ranked amateur in Australia or you were me. And he came and said, look, with your age and your experience, we want you to be the captain. And the captain does nothing. Maybe a little bit of selection, but not really.
Yeah.
Don't do anything, but just sort of lead a little bit. And so the last 2 years of my amateur career I was captain Victoria, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Wow, that's
so
I've got to be honest, that's an incredible story.
So then at 42, I'd sort of You know, I've fallen out of love with the game now, and I think I lost it somewhere on the Hume Highway, just backwards and forwards. Because the last 2 years, you're thinking any bad performance is going to put me out of the team because, oh, look what he had it. And that's fair enough too. You know, others are playing well and you're not. You shouldn't be in the team, right?
Yep.
Anyway, I'm blessed to say I got what I got. Yeah. And my last one was at Royal Adelaide, so it'll be one of my favourite places forever. And during that period, my oldest daughter, Steffi, she was able to come and caddy for me at Interstate Series Golf and stuff like that. And then lo and behold, a few years later, she was selected. So we both have played amateur golf for Victoria. And they were sort of thinking there hasn't been many fathers and daughters that have both played amateur golf.
Yeah, I'm sure there hasn't.
And I reckon just at the start of hers, if I'd practiced a bit, I could have nearly snuck it in. That would have been a bit of a story. But anyway, it didn't happen because it's a bit of a vicious cycle, golf. You either practice a lot and play well or you don't want to play at all. So
Is that a real proud dad moment, seeing your daughter step up to that level? What was that like?
Oh, look, we spent an incredible amount of time with each other because just how families are and trying to, you know, engage your wife back in the workforce to find what she can do. And, of course, she can't work when you're working, and, you know, childcare's different now.
Going through that at the moment at home,
a little bit. This is, you know, going back 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Probably not as quiet as things. And we wanted someone at home to raise the children as well. That was not our decision.
Sure.
I'm not. It's everyone makes their own personal decision. And so we just used to go out every night and practice golf because I had to.
Yeah, okay.
She had a natural sort of swing, Courtney not so much, but they both just spent half the time sliding down bunker faces and
being kids, right, on a golf course.
Writing their name in a bunker, and I'd say, you know, someone's going to say, oh, God, and they'd rake that back out again and all those things. And but, yeah, she started getting somewhere as well, and, you know, I didn't want that to be her life, you know, that she had to be me.
Yeah.
But she's made a couple of comments in interviews that she'd seen what I'd do, and she thought, you know, she's a bit of a loner as well, or was, you know, early in her life. She's built a good group now in the pro ranks.
Yep.
But it was a game she could just go and do herself.
Yeah.
Go and play golf this afternoon.
Yep.
I don't need anyone to kick the ball to me.
Yep.
And look, she spent a lot of time with her grandmother playing in comps, which was great.
Okay.
You know, so they got to know each other really well.
That's awesome.
As well, and then played with all of them, and so that was really good. So then. There was a few moves then after that, and anyway, the final one was Matt McLeod moved on as super and decided to join Living Turf.
Yep.
And I think he said to the CEO, he'll never do it, because I'd sort of made comments, look, I really don't need it.
Yep.
I do financially, it'd be great, but I don't miss dealing with people's expectations and egos and, you know, that sort of stuff.
The things we don't miss sometimes.
You know, the preparing of the turf, and that's the easy bit. You know, yes, you have your battles, but, you know, understanding what people are thinking is difficult and why they're thinking that. Anyway, I thought, you know what, I'll have a go. So that's now probably 5 years. And here we are. So I think it was about Christmas about 5 years ago, roughly, that was the changeover that Matt finished. And then, you know, challenges came along like early December of the next year. They said, we're going to have a PGA tournament, and it's on in 6 weeks.
6 weeks notice?
or 8 weeks or something like that. We were very late to the party, but they just thought it was a great look for our complex.
Yeah, sure.
So here we are, 4 years later.
Wow, that is unreal.
People have said, now I've worked at Cobram Barooga for 40 years, right? In March 17 is my 40th anniversary. Now, people would say, how have you hung around that long? But you can see I've had a few different twists and turns. It's not just, I've actually been a groundsman for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, so
there's lots of different parts of, different corners that you've been in.
That's my way of, you know, being, overly cautious and not really want to leave the air. Country life is addictive.
Yeah.
That's what I say to people. It's really good, and, you know, your children are protected from the bad things in the world just a little bit until they decide to move on and do their own thing. So
sure.
Anyway, so that's where we are today.
Quite a journey.
Oh, look, you know, there's golf mixed up in it, and but without golf, I wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I think we just talked about it earlier on that, you know, I think, you know, having some golf in your background as a golf course superintendent, I think is important.
Yeah.
Understanding the intricacies of the game a little, I think it helps, you know. But hey, there's plenty of good people who are doing great work too.
Oh, 100%, mate. It's absolutely, mate. If you don't mind, I want to ask you about a couple of things in your journey there, which interest me. I want to go back to, if you don't mind, that time when you went from being superintendent and you went through that difficult time weather-wise, the challenges of here, and the club tapped you on the shoulder and said, listen, hey, and you took that step back. And I don't want to talk about other people, but I'd like to hear from you what that felt like for you to go through that process. Because I imagine that would have been a pretty challenging moment to be told that, hey, it's not working with you. We don't really back you, I guess. Is that how it felt?
Well, that's what it is. And, and it's... looking back at it now, we didn't actually have a general manager at the time. So the president was the general manager, and it was like he was just waiting to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I'm still grateful, though, that I was well thought of enough, or whether they thought there'd be a member outcry or something, that we need to look after this bloke. We can't just say, your time's finished.
Yeah, okay, and then
because
you're out the door.
If you're going to be a superintendent or a turf person, and every country guy would know this, you can't live in the same town and be a super, because you've got to travel some God only mighty distance unless there's a neighbouring. Now, in the city, you might be able to go to another suburb or something and not have to relocate the family. So my wife had a good job. The kids were both pretty quiet kids. I was worried that they wouldn't start school at another one and handle it well. And I just thought, you know what, I have to swallow that as the sort of the dad, if you like, and that's probably toxic masculinity or whatever. But I'm the one that's got it. But yeah, look, that was difficult. And I was very lucky, though, that the guys I work with treated me well. And even the guy that came in after, like, I was treated really well.
Yep.
And I felt respected, and it was good because most were asking me, what do I do now? Like,
sure.
If something's
You're
gone
like
wrong,
an elder statesman
and
in a
just
way.
trying to help, because I know he'll know the answer.
Yep.
And look, that's sort of a bit what it is now, because he'll know because he's been there forever. and look, that's fine. And but yeah, look, I don't know how I could really describe it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy coming to work, I must admit. But not one person made me feel inferior.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's a good thing. And
they were a good group of guys, as it turned out. Whether I'd always got along with all of them, not one of them seemed to take any pride in the fact that I'd had to step away.
Yeah. No, I was just curious. I can't imagine that would have been an easy thing to go through.
No, and look, a stronger person might have left. Maybe I was a bit weak and just thought, you know what, just roll over and die, and that sort of thing. Like, I don't know, maybe. But, I would have had to then go to a different crew. And I did have a conversation with the super and say, I can't really go anywhere, can I? He said, oh, well, and I said, well, what am I going to say to people?
Yeah.
I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Well, what's your resume? Oh, well, this is it, but I'm here now because I'm not good enough.
Yeah, fair. I suppose.
What else can you say?
What else is there to put on it?
You get guys that come for jobs and there's no recommendation from where you were working.
Yeah.
Well, what does that say to you?
Yeah. So, that's true. It's probably that's right. It makes it very hard.
I know. I gave great references and most of them are pretty honest.
Yeah.
But there's times where you think, oh, happy to see this bloke go.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah. On the back of that, I suppose that you talked about the millennium drought through that it was the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
That very, very difficult times. I remember bushfires up home in the Blue Mountains ripped through home and all sorts of, we were preparing our house for it and that sort of stuff. It was terrible. It was a very terrible time.
Yep.
That's in the Blue Mountains. That borders Sydney. This is on the land here, right? So I'm asking you in a way, and probably alluding to it a little bit, would that have compounded in an area like this? Your golf course is challenging. Your job is challenging. You're getting pressure, and ultimately that pressure ticked over to something else for you.
Yep.
But the town is going through it. There's talk in the local community. Was that a bigger thing?
Oh, look,
and challenging?
I even feel now, even though, look, we're going along pretty well. The course is pretty well rated and we do well with the WebEx and that.
Yep.
I do feel like, and our CEO talks about it, we're the main drawer of people to this community. Every weekend we bring 200 golfers into the town.
Yeah, right.
Right. So when the golf, and it's like they say the farmers struggle, the town struggles. Well, if the golf club and sporties struggle, the town struggles also.
Yeah, right.
We've got 200 employees here at the sporties. So that's
Wow.
a big place. Now, you haven't seen much of Barooga yet, but it's tiny, right? And Cobram's a decent feeder town, and that's how the river clubs work.
Yeah, okay.
Bigger town, small.
Big town on Victorian side and small on the New South Wales
Took advantage
side.
of the poke machine rules many years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But, look, at times during the worst of the drought, and someone else had to deal with this too, we were paying $1,000 for a megalitre of water, where at the moment we don't pay anything really. There's a licence fee and you get an allocation.
Yeah.
At the time, our allocation was 580 megs or something.
Yep.
We had about 30.
Wow.
So because it all goes on a percentage scale of how much water's in the dam, how much are they anticipating people are going to use.
Is that Lake Hume that they draw from?
Lake Hume, Dartmouth to Hume.
Okay. Yeah,
so up in the hills and then through.
Yeah.
And then, some people were very clever and just bought farms to get water to trade water.
Right.
And
so they used it as a commodity, essentially,
and
traded
it still is. There's apparently some wealthy guys around that mow, and not in this town, but just in general. People,
in the region.
People thought, you know what, why don't we go and buy 1,000 megs somewhere? We can make $1 million, in some years. Every year we'll probably get $300 a meg for it.
Really?
So
that's a thing.
As a greenkeeper along the river, and look, every river system would be the same. You live and die on the allocation you get. So next year is not looking rosy because this year we've got a reasonable allocation, so we'll make it through. We might have to purchase some. But next year our allocation could be almost nothing, which means you don't have any water. So then you've got to think, right, we've got some bore water. Yeah, we get, say, 200 megs out of a bore, which is still, but, that's fine, but that's not even a third of what you use.
Wow.
So then you've got to go and tap the local council or then go on the open market. So anyone that's not going to crop for the year decides, you know what, I'm going to sell my 200 megs, but if someone wants to buy it, they can pay for it.
Well, this is a totally different ballgame, mate, in terms of... I've never heard of anything like this.
So this is like a bidding war for water. So, farmers have to decide, am I going to crop? Or I'm just going to sell water, and why wouldn't you? Like if you own 500 megs and you could get $500 a meg for it, just do that.
It becomes
sit back,
an offset to if you know.
I don't have to worry about frost wiping out the crop or a storm. It's the best deal you could ever do.
Or an extended dry period you're not even sure about.
That's it. Don't know if I'll get a crop.
You guarantee.
I know what I'm going to get here. Yeah. So
far out.
So that's the difficult thing, and it's not the local farmers that do to each other. It's the people that own water that probably shouldn't. So there's always a bit of a push in the country that you must own property.
Yeah.
To
have a license.
So because you shouldn't be able to just say, oh yeah, look, I'll stick my 500 on, and when someone buys it, they buy it. If they don't, I haven't lost anything. It doesn't cost me anything to own that water.
Yeah. Wow,
So
and then that becomes a political game and all sorts of stuff. Wow, that's heavy.
I imagine there's other river systems all around Australia that work on the same thing. If you go to Gippsland and places in Victoria, there's probably more rain and a little more water in river systems where Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia, there's a real game for that Murray.
Yep.
Like the South Australians, demand a certain amount go through.
Yeah, because they're at the end of the stream, right?
That's right. It's got to get there, and then there's the environmental lobby that needs X amount to go through, so they have to have that much in the dam, and then there's all the people that use it for their things.
I'd never driven the back roads to get to here before. I'd only ever come from Albury Cross, and this time I made a point of going around up through... Urana.
We went through that sort of thing.
So, and I'm driving along. One paddock's all been done and dusted, and it's literally a dust bowl.
Yep.
And they've finished and doing whatever. And then there's a cornfield.
Yes.
And where did that come from?
Yeah.
And then you're driving over the roads and you see the water canals. So I'd never understood the irrigation and how it all worked around. This is like...
The good thing that's happened, though, I suppose, in the decades, is it's a bit like golf courses. We've stopped using, manual watering and flooding everything.
Yeah, okay.
You're trying to use, autos at night.
It's efficient. Yep.
And they're doing the same. They're using irrigators instead of just opening a valve and let the paddock flood.
Gotcha.
Everyone's trying to use their water more efficiently to get it to go further. So,
No. It's very interesting, mate. Things that I'd never even considered.
It is really stark, though, when you see, one paddock's resting and a dry patch like this now, and the one over there is the one they're working on this time. Yeah. And, you think, whoa.
I didn't know any of that stuff. Mate, quite a career journey. And very, very impressive to see. We talked about a difficult time earlier. How much did that make it harder? And I heard you mention it before. How much did that experience and going through that make it a bit more challenging for you after your breakaway and going to do more of the golf side to take on that supers role? How was that a big hurdle to say yes to?
You talk about scar tissue, you know, think, you know, how is it going to go? And I'm not going to pretend I don't think about, you know, it's all get a bit too hard sometimes. And look, I'm not going to give up my job tomorrow, but if the summer is really difficult next year, I'm just going to think, you know what, I'm 56 shortly. You know, do I need that sort of stress to think I've got to go and see the manager and I need $100,000 for 100 megs of water?
Mate, you guys are having discussions here, right?
You know, and you just think, whatever profit you've managed to squirrel away, I'm going to take it and spend it on water.
Yeah,
because if I don't, though, the net effect is the guy that comes up here and pays green fees and wants a nice course, he doesn't care, and why should he?
Yeah, they're not interested in the story.
I just want a course because I'm spending my holiday dollar and I want it to be good because I know the one down the road is. Yeah. So we got to compete.
Yeah, because you've got competition. There's competition on the Murray as well, is there?
So, absolutely. You know, because, you know, we're all offering similar packages and prices, and some people like that one and like others. So, you know, the reason we dived into the WebEx is to give us some type of competitive advantage that, we see it on the television, it looks really nice. So that's our goal.
Yep.
So there's the water situation always hangs heavy. And, and then just, you know, every super would talk about staff and trying to get good staff and whatever. And look, my guys are really good, but, you know, there's things that happen. You just think, I don't really want to deal. I don't need that type of stress in my life. You know, I just think, you know what, just turn up and do your job, do it well. I'll treat you well, and we'll all be happy. But you know, that's utopia. That doesn't. That doesn't happen.
It's wishful thinking, I guess. But
you know, and look, don't worry though. Since the Sporties have been involved, the resources here are brilliant. Like, we spent $2 million on John Deere gear recently. We bought 30 brand new units in one go.
Wow!
Over that. Well, it didn't quite get we didn't quite get it delivered, but that was the goal.
Yep.
But it all came within about 8 months. Now, not many people will turn a whole shed over.
Yeah, in one go. Like that.
You know, so incredibly well resourced compared to where we were, which makes life easier.
Yep.
Makes it easier to be, you know, to think, well, I used to struggle with everything, and now at least that part I've got pretty new gear most of the time. Don't have continuous breakdowns, and
that's something that
goes into the positive column, if you like, as compared to what don't I like. Because look, I'm not a positive person generally. I'm a glass half emptier, but I don't know. The way I justify, I think that prepares you for life. If I used to do a bit of the treatment of the pools during my one of my careers here, and I used to run into a guy at the gym, and he was great fella, but he'd be bouncing around at 4 o'clock in the morning and excited. And I said, Ian, don't you just go through the day disappointed when people let you down? And then, and that just takes the edge off you all day until you end up, you're like me, you know, and I just start that way and hope that my day will plateau or maybe it'll improve. But I'm, you know, I think greenkeeping, you sort of expect the worst most of the time.
You know it's coming.
The computer didn't run. The pump broke down. You know, look what's happened. Like at the moment, we've got this invasion of cockatoos and corellas and things. Every night we're just driving around trying to scare them with whatever means we can. And, you know, you come in the morning and think, I went home at 7:30, and within that period of that and dark, someone dug a hole in something, you know. And, you know, sometimes I think about it, I think, I don't even know why I do it, to be honest. Like, you know, and, you know, you throw in, and I tell the people that the worst paid career that going around, especially the grounds crew, the pay rate's appalling. But, you know.
We talk about these things a lot. Yeah, correct.
This is not a great ad for greenkeeping.
Come on, mate. But this is a warts and all story as well. This is what we talk about.
The conditions you work in, though, like, you know, it was 41 degrees to yesterday. Today it was about 25 and blowing an absolute hurricane. The next 2 days are going to be brilliant. 33, not much wind. And you just think, you know what? The guys finish at sort of 2:30 every day. We do a 38 short on a Friday, so we only work till 12. You know, your life's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know,
look, I think
the other factors sort of help a little.
Yeah,
you know.
they do along the way. I mean, it's everyone gets, like you said, everyone's got a different journey. There's lots of headaches as superintendent's roles, and all courses and all clubs deal with different things. And once you get to the position in that chair right over there, that's when everything sits. It's over your head as well. But it's always there. It's forever there. Yeah. That's the part that I used to. You know, I was a super for 9 years, but you get to a point where it's always there. That's why I asked the question what it was like to to go through the thought process to say, I'm going to go back and do this again.
Everyone's got a bit of ego, though. And look, I say to people that ask me a similar thing, look, oh, why? And I say, well, I was at the bottom when I was an apprentice, and then I was at the top, and then I was almost at the bottom again. And if I haven't learnt something along the way, I'm an idiot. That's what I'd like to think. Look, I take that comment of you're too nice a guy to the fellas. I don't come to work for an argument every day, and there's things that I see that you think, you know what? I don't think he meant that on purpose, that, you could probably have a quiet word rather than browbeat him in front of people and think, he's going to resent me and think, you know what, I'm not going to do it properly ever, and then I'm going to wait for you to sack me. So I don't need any of that conflict. Now, whether that's gets the best out of the crew, I don't know. That's for other people to decide. There's an amount of work we like to get through, and if we get there, well, I guess that's, we find the way. But
at the end of the day, I suppose that the product out there is the measure, and everyone's a judge.
Yeah, that's
whether
right.
we like it or not, that's...
The WebEx is difficult because we get to sort of a level that we're probably not at all the time, but it's the dangling carrot to say this is what we like to try and get to. But look, there's a lot of input that gets there that possibly isn't there for the rest of the year. But, we do our best to say let's keep keep it going at that level as long as we can through the growing period anyway. So.
No. But you talked about new machinery, and I look at and I hear that part of a story, and I hear you talk about the challenges with Mother Nature.
Yep.
What's it like? And I know before we started recording, we were talking about the days when it was really challenging, and you touched on that as well, where the club wasn't able to improve on the machinery. So you've got two headaches, right?
Yep.
You've got what you can control as a club is a headache, and what you can't control as a club is a headache.
Correct.
What's it like taking the stuff that the club can control away, so that's now a positive? Does that make life a little bit easier?
Oh, absolutely.
A lot easier.
In those rough days, you're trying to mow the fairways. You've only got two machines and one's in the shop. You think, well, I've got 36 holes of fairways to cut, and they're growing like mad, and I'm going backwards, and it's just like a spiral. You think, well, now the rough cutter's broken down.
Yep.
So then, your rough's too long, and the fairways are terrible, and and then you'll have a hydraulic leak with a greens mower, and all this is through wear and stuff. It's not through abuse. It's just that
everything has a lifespan,
and that sort of stuff then just adds a pile, it's like piling on more sort of doom, if you like, that, it's all just turning to shit, basically. You just think, and tomorrow we get out of bed and we'll just do it all again.
We'll do it all again. We'll go through it again.
He'll fix that rough cutter, and then within, 3 hours, a wheel's fallen off, or it started boiling again, or, you're
just forever chasing your tail.
Can't get a part till next month. You think, all right, well, park it up there and the gruff will just grow, and then you're trying to mow it with other things like a tractor slasher, and it's look, just having that ability to say the machine goes out, it does the job I ask it to do, they wash it down, they park it, and it just means that whatever went wrong is due to the operator, or that I didn't do it right, or it was wet, or whatever. There might have been inconsistent, but it's not because the machines weren't running properly.
No, very good, mate. And I've got to ask, and I've got to say, that the podcast Keeper of the Greens is partnered with John Deere Golf, of course. But I'm curious in terms of the new toys. I've seen Ryan at Royal Canberra's got one of these GPS sprayers, mate. Have you got one of those toys?
I've actually got two.
You got? Well, I don't know if Ryan's got two, mate. But you got two. What are they like? I've got to ask because I've seen Ryan was describing it to me. I just haven't seen it in action yet, but the technology is pretty bloody impressive, right? It's blowing me away every time I talk to someone about it.
I've got a guilty secret.
Go on.
I haven't driven it. So,
but do you need to drive them? Is that
look? I have enough, and I like others to do it. I don't like to do it all myself. Anyway, look, Ben at Tokemall, you spoke about, and he was an early adopter as well, and that's the reason we got involved with John Deere, because Steve just came and sort of said a few of the right things, and then Ben did the droning of his course that mapped his Kikuyu, which meant that he only had to spray 20% of the property instead of all of it for Kikuyu.
Yeah,
so the saving is incredible.
All of a sudden, it's a
so then I go out now, I can buy exactly the right amount of fungicide, because it doesn't matter who's spraying the green, they can't use more than the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a good way. There's no operator adjustments to make for.
In the other sprayers we've had, and every manual sprayer's like this, it's a rectangle trying to spray around a circle.
Yep.
So there's always overshoot of a nozzle where you map that edge of the green, that's what it sprays. You can set the tolerance. I want it to go a metre, I want it to go 50 centimetres or 20 over the collar.
No way.
And,
That's incredible.
If you map your fairways out, basically when I watch them spray the greens, you pull up, put it in auto steer, and it's just like it's not new technology. The farmers have been using it for decades.
Well, that's the difference, right? New tech for our industry.
Using John Deere, as the parent saying, well, we can do it for these guys too.
That's impressive.
So sometimes there's difficult spots around bunkers and things to spray. Well, the guys can just drive straight through it because the nozzles just turn on and off themselves.
The individual ones
go on and off themselves.
That's unreal.
So, I was quoted in the magazine saying we saved 20% the first time we sprayed. Well, we did. I always had to buy 1.2 hectares worth of spray each time because it just depended on who the operator was. Some sprayed over more than others. So I'd end up having to buy 2.5 hectares of spray. Now I can buy 2.
That's a big saving across all different products, across all different areas.
So what I've been able to do then is to be sure that they can spray a little bit of the collar as well, not just the green, because I know that that's how far it's going to get. We haven't got the point where, and it happened plenty of times, it happened to me too, that you'd go out and you go, oh, geez, I've got 3 greens left.
Yeah.
I've run out.
Yeah, I'm just about cooked and I'm not going to make it.
What did I do?
Yeah.
And I remember fertilising for Matt when he was the boss, and we ended up with some zebra stripes and stuff. Well, we couldn't work. You had to then try and think, if I just have one boom, I can fix that. Well, the GPS would have fixed it because you could have just gone back and it would only spray that bit. We haven't done it yet, but, broadleaf, rough spraying, you get a bit of cape weed and stuff. They can just crisscross wherever they want, and it won't respray that area. So those things.
It records where they've been.
Yeah, so they call that colouring in, where you don't set, because normally you set the fairway and the green and stuff. Well, in an open area, they just colour it in, and it knows I've already sprayed that in this session. I won't do it again. Now the two we've got talk to each other, so it doesn't matter who is spraying. It won't go back over what someone else has done either. You could actually have 2 blokes in the rough doing stuff. But all those little things. Now, yes, the satellite is a bit dicky sometimes, but everyone's internet's a bit funny sometimes. But it's rare, and I just see teaching younger guys or anyone how to spray is so much easier because they don't have to learn the bit that you had to learn on a sprayer about how do you get that last bit
get
and
the
stuff.
hook around and not do too much of double hit or whatever.
You don't have to worry about it. You just say, righto, I'm going to teach you how to spray. This thing already knows how to do it. This is how you do it.
Yep.
And and then you can go on whatever angle you want on a green instead of always having to go the easy way because I've got to try and hang the boom over that bit or whatever. So look, that was a big step forward for us. And look, we're all learning all the time. Sure. And look, I don't do ads for John Deere, but I'd say. Don't be concerned about it. If you're going to do it, I think just decide to do it because I think everyone loves a bit of tech sometimes, but it's a good tech. It's going to save you a bit of money. It won't save you money forever, but it will save money initially that, you think, well, I had to allow for people making mistakes.
Yeah.
So I always had to have an extra litre for when somebody forgets to turn the boom off or comes back and they've got half of it left.
Yeah,
and you think, what happened?
What did they miss or what didn't get done properly? He can't make it, and the other guy has got 3 left, so it can't be the same. No, I know, like I said, I'm partnered with John Deere, so I've got to say that out loud, of course. But just to understand that side of it, because I know Ryan talks about how good it is, and other people that I've spoken to that got it, and I haven't seen it, and I just in my head, it's like this should be really impressive, and here you are saying it actually is.
I don't really care if we were not partners like we are and whatever.
Yep.
And we hadn't bought any other machines, we probably would have gone down the GPS spraying anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what we would have done. I just think, you can't make mistakes, and for young guys to learn how to spray, it's so much easier.
Yeah, very, very impressive, mate. Very impressive.
Control some of those things.
Yeah, 100%. Now, let's get to the golf course, mate. Appreciate you telling us all those ins and outs and the personal details, mate. I really do appreciate that. That means a great deal to not only myself, but to sharing the stories. Let's talk about Cobram as a golf course, or Barooga, Barooga, where we are. Mate, can you tell us a little bit about what the grass types are that you manage on this golf course overall? What's across the surfaces?
Okay, so we've got 2 courses. The old course has probably a half coverage of wintergreen that's been line planted.
Yep.
And the rest is just what we call native cooch, which some are fantastic and others are average.
Yeah, okay,
just some are. I just think we've got a blend of natives that have made their way through, and they've never had any line planting or anything else. Okay. And given the right inputs, go quite well. But it's a long winter for some of that grass.
Yeah, okay.
So then the West Course had legend incorporated into common, and we've got a pretty big ERI problem out there. So we're going to have to do something at some stage. So we've playing around with a bit of Santa Ana and whether we line plant some Santa Ana into all of that.
Yeah, right.
And hopefully it becomes really dominant.
Yeah, okay.
Or some incredibly smart bloke comes up with
some solution
brew of some sort. So we're involved with some trialling with a couple people, and
righto. Okay.
I don't know. Sometimes it just makes you feel better that you're trying to do something. So we've got. So then I like cool season collars where a lot of guys grow cooch fairly close.
Yep.
I try and keep a buffer. And that's just a mixture of what I call green grass.
Okay.
So I try and keep the weeds out if I can.
Yep.
This year I made a big mistake. I didn't do any pre-emergent, but pre-emergent has a bit of a root pruning, and I think through the hardness of summer it's really difficult to keep some of that grass alive, and that's why cooch grass is sometimes brought fairly close, because then you don't have that battle, which if I was smarter, maybe that's what I'd do. I don't know. So then the greens have been sort of tinkered with along the way, but basically a bent poa mix,
Okay.
And there's been a few rebuilt around the old course that have got a pretty much pure bent, but poa's coming in, but we've been trialling a bit with Poa Cure to try and just keep the newest ones purish.
Yep.
And then sort of go from there.
Okay.
But just mixed grasses. Teas basically had cool season and rubbish taken out of them, and just natural cooches just come through.
Yeah,
So look,
warm season across majority?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. And, it doesn't always work out, but I like the rough to be just any grass.
Yeah, okay.
Without what we'd call real weeds.
Yeah, sure.
Because the contrast of, a beautiful cooch fairway and just like a native stand of rough around, I reckon the contrast looks really good. So we go from brown rough and green fairways in the summer, and then we go brown fairways and green rough in the winter. And I reckon
that's a cool change.
The framing looks really good.
That's really interesting.
And then I grow some jungle.
Yeah, okay.
And you'll see it once you get around for the tournament.
I'm looking forward to
they call it Vogel grass. This year's been really really and look, the members hate it when I talk like that, because they despise it, some of them, particularly the ladies that can't hit it
carry
all that
to the
far,
fairways.
And I'll probably have to amend that a little bit, because they just think I'm a big head that it can play golf really well and I don't care, which is not true, right? But anyway, if that's my label. I was also labelled the chief flooder the other day, which was quite ironic after 40 degrees 2 days in a row. I don't know what you'd expect to be done. But anyway, so the Vogel grass is just what I'd call a couple strategic areas, just to add a bit of framing.
Yeah, okay.
Because sometimes, and particularly on the West, we sort of just mow tree line to tree line, because our clients aren't great golfers, some of them, and they're just up here for a holiday weekend.
Yep.
And I do understand, I get a bit of flack because it takes forever to play that course because there's a bit of long grass there. But I just reckon when you walk around the old, having never been here, like the 18th has a fairly big stand of it. And I just reckon looking down from the tournament marquee down there, it just adds a real thing where it could be just a plain mown area and
it
guys
just nothing.
Madly flog a driver up that hole. And it's a nothing hole. So anyway, it'd be interesting to see what you make of it.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I'm looking forward to seeing the entire property, to be honest, because I've never seen it at all.
It's not Royal Melbourne, and it's not Barooga Dunes. It's not a plain country course, but it's a basic country golf course that there's just a little bit of tree issue on the tees, and I've tried to incorporate a bit of rough that just makes the guys think, and girls obviously they're playing, just makes them think a little bit about how they play, and the members too, for that matter. a big bit of nasty grass on a mound. Well, you don't have to hit it there. Try and just use your handicap and play the game properly, and you'll score better anyway.
And that adds intrigue and interest. Yeah, I think I'm a big believer. This is just a personal thing. I'm a big believer on exactly what you've said. Is that you have to have those other areas. If it's just short roughish out there, and just the trees are the only issue, there's not a lot of other interest there involved in your game throughout.
On the west course, for example, we tended, because there's quite a few more trees on the west, and we just think no one likes to chip out of trees through long grass. And just the way the irrigation works out there, it just sort of can't be done. We don't have a wide enough coverage to grow rough everywhere. And so I do say, and we've got some water out on the other nine, the second, like the back nine, and I think there's enough other issue there. And so I jealously guard the Vogel rough on the old, but the west, I just think, you know what, I think it's a big enough course and it's ugly enough, it's longer and the greens are trickier, that they probably don't need that other little bit of strategy involved, if you know what I mean. A few more fairway bunkers, so there's other things that are going to trick you up a bit.
So, and I didn't start with this one before, mate. If you can, it's a 36-hole facility.
Yeah, 36 holes, and I think the second 18 came along in about 1985. It was finished, which was sort of my first year here. So I was a very lucky guy. I got to work on a complete dirt patch.
Yeah, right.
And then it became a 9-hole. And we spent, days drawing contour lines of greens with limal on the ground and putting pegs in. And we followed the plan to the millimetre.
Yeah, right.
Raked that tier.
Yep.
Raked to the next tier and all, and just blended it all in. And that was measuring how wide the contour lines were.
Wow.
And that was that.
Okay.
So Kevin Hartley designed that course. And look, it's pretty good. Kevin had a big impact along the river.
I was going to say, I know he did Tokemall.
And a few others. I think he spent some time and did some at Mildura and a few things like that.
Yeah.
And the old course has been around forever,
yep.
And I think it sort of became grass in about 67, I think. And it's been sort of designed and been whatever.
Yep.
I don't know whether we made a mistake by labelling it the old course because, along the way, it's very popular and I'm not sure the West has ever really achieved the same status. Okay. So that's why we jumped in with the PGA Associates national event, just trying to lift the profile of the West and give the crew something to aim for a little bit to prepare a sort of tournament course there as well. But, 36 holes.
Big course. Big space.
Big property. I showed our female volunteers around on Monday, and then we went and did had a look at the two sporting ovals we volunteer to look after for the Shire.
Yeah, right.
As well.
Oh, wow.
So we've got two sporting ovals with cricket pitches.
Wow.
Two clubhouse buildings and also like a gym that's got a 25-metre indoor pool and
wow, that's
full
huge.
weight room. It's a big.
I haven't had a chance to see it. I'll come here now and come straight into your office. We're doing this. I'm going in stone cold.
Yeah, it's a big property and and one of the women said to me, "Look, what's it like?" And I said, "Well, it's like having twins. It's not twice the trouble. It's more than that. Because you just don't seem to react quick enough. And people have, if you've got enough. And look, I've got 15 guys at work here, and that's pretty generous to be honest. The first WebEx we had 12, and that's all I had. But the West Course just didn't go to rack or ruin, but not enough was done there.
Yeah, okay.
So we sort of forgot too much about it.
Yep.
But two different foremen, but then I think though you need lots of eyes on it. Sometimes you just don't get there quick enough to think what happened there. And depending on how people report things, and not everyone sees what we see, and all that. So, look, it is a difficult task, and most of the contemporaries down in Melbourne of our standard, they'd probably have a dozen or more for 18 holes, and but that's because they've got the resources to do it. So that's not a negative against them. But that's, if you check numbers all along the river, we're reasonably well placed, I think.
Yeah, okay.
They always talk about another club further away that, they go well with numbers. But, trying to keep them with
the grass is always greener, mate.
Well,
it doesn't matter who's talking. The grass is always greener.
But then, I've played a lot of country golf early on, and you'll go to a small place. Well, I only do it with two blokes, you only need four. I thought, righto, okay, fair enough.
Don't go there.
Yeah, it's just, they only have one bloke there. So what do you think we only need two? 36 holes. What happens when someone goes on holidays?
I've done two people for 18 holes personally, and I would not wish that on my worst enemy.
I got to admit, though, Very curious, because I really enjoyed the bowling greens when it was just myself. I had 3 bowling greens, and I worked hard on those, and we got district events and stuff, and very proud. But I've sort of someone that's pretty single-minded, and look, I spend way too much time at work, and my wife would say that, but we're a team. She just allows me to do it. I've got grown-up children, and this is my life, and she knows I've been through the other bit, so I'm not going to let that happen. I don't kill myself at work, but I know what needs to be done. But just down the road, there's Numurkah, there's Matt. He's got 2 or 3 guys, and I reckon they just find what they like to do each, and then that just evolves from there. Like, you think, I don't really like changing holes, but he loves it. So let's just do that. Like, if that's his favourite thing, then just do that. And if he does it well, and, even there's a course down the road here that's a couple of hours away called Kahuna Golf Club.
I've heard of it.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And not overly well resourced, 1 or 2 man operation, a few volunteers, and I just think, you know what, I could probably, whether that's my shady tree eventually that you look for that spot. Although we've got a problem. My wife would love to live in Queensland. I'd rather go to Tassie because it's too hot. So I don't know. Maybe Cobram's in the middle. I don't know.
Well, you're in the sweet spot already, mate. You just don't know it until you leave to come back.
So. There's a couple courses that I'd love to go to, and think I'll be happy because the town's so beautiful. There's a town called Bright here, and a beautiful golf course, and Cameron does a brilliant job there with limited resources too.
Okay, where's that Bright? Did you say which direction?
Northeast Victoria, so it's in the sort of high country. So from here you head across sort of Wangaratta, away from here, sort of towards the mountains. Yeah, so from here you would head whatever direction that is, sort of towards the coast, but nowhere near the course. But it's sort of at the foot of all the ski fields and everything.
Ah, okay, got you.
Autumn Leave Town, and it's just such a beautiful place.
Yeah,
but,
nice.
Anyway,
mate, I love country. I love driving through the country, mate. I grew up in it, and I love travelling it, so hence why I'm loving being here. What are the soils like on the Murray, mate, to manage golf courses on, turf on? Because I don't know what it's like. I grew up managing 200 mil on top of sandstone, so you're doing better than me, I reckon. But I don't know what it's like here. It's probably the opposite, is it?
Look,
is it heavy?
A lot of raw red sand, a lot have got.
Oh, so it's sandy.
So this old course that we're on is sort of a sandy-based thing.
Okay.
The west course is a bit weird because it goes incredibly raw sand at one end to quite heavy clay at the other.
Oh, right. So you've got a mix. You've got a bit of a mix of soils around.
So, just and that's where good irrigation systems help a lot because, we've got Tyro links here, which is great. And you can keep, timings where you need them to be. But if you have a bit of a leaking sprinkler down the bottom end of the west, it'll be muddy. If you have it at the top, you won't find it for ages because it's quite sandy.
Yeah, okay.
So we've built a couple greens in areas and we've used USGA sand, which everyone does, which is that what you're meant to do. But the biggest problem on the river is getting water off, getting water in, not getting it off. So then we build greens, and say we as meaning us, not everyone else. So you always put the surface drainage in so you don't have anything. But then we build sandy greens on top of sand, and I think we just have to come up with a better method. But we're sort of cheating a bit because we don't go to the full USGA specs. So perched water table means you've got water obviously there all the time.
It hangs.
But we don't have it. So we've got raw sand draining quickly, also draining off the surface. Right. And I think we haven't quite hit the right blend yet. But that's our next task. We're going to build a nursery chipping green eventually at the 10th tee. And I'm going to budget a bit more, and let's say I'll get our construction bloke to say, I'm not going to do it. I want you to build a USGA green for me.
Okay.
And let's see how that works. That could be the model then. That yes, the green build isn't 20 grand, it's 40 grand, but it means it's going to perform better than any other green on the property. Not be your problem child.
Rather than just being.
If I miss 15 minutes of water on that green every night, it's no
forget
good.
it. You'll come in and you'll know it's cactus.
That's it.
It's forever. You've already missed it.
Yeah, that's
and it becomes a challenge after that.
Yep.
What's it take to look after a golf course of this size? You touched on it before. You got 15. Was it 15 you got at the moment?
Yeah, 15. Look, I'd like to pretend I'm the most organised guy in the world. But I could have the greatest system. I know John Deere's got on link and others have got whatever it is. I'm sorry if that's the wrong term, but you'll work that out. But there's management software out there to do that sort of thing. And look, I could spend hours and hours and hours, but within 2 text messages at 5:45 in the morning, throw it in the bin.
Out the window.
So look, I don't get months and months ahead. The things that I like to be very organised on is We follow a fertiliser regime from soil testing with living turf.
Yep.
So we fertilise every 2 weeks. So all foliar, so all liquids, and that's religious.
Yep.
Our fungiciding, we never miss a 4-weeker, and at this time of year through the tournament and everything,
Yep.
we're at fortnightly. Those are the things that are really important to me. And then there's obviously the general run of the land, fairways twice a week, etc., and then other little bits fit in between. But look, I'm a bit of a pen and paper person, probably much to my manager's disgust at times. But yeah, look, I'd like to pretend I'd like to be incredibly organised, that I knew what everyone was doing every minute. And I think the guys get a bit frustrated sometimes that, does he really know what we're doing next? And that's me probably falling on my sword a bit, but, there's a prediction of how long things take. And it doesn't always pan out. And if you're incredibly allocated that, I know
Too
that
tight.
he's going to have 33 minutes left at the end of the day to
Yep.
go and empty that bin, it's... So time has to be allowed. Maybe I allocate every person a job every minute of every day. But maybe, in hindsight, I was thinking, I've got a couple extras now, and maybe you need a swinger that is doing some things to actually prevent maintenance, not just mowing grass, fixing the things that need fixing. So, yeah, look, I've got a lot of thinking to do. Look, I'm 56 shortly, and I often joke with my wife, at 60, I'd like to be working a lot less.
Yep.
I'm not a wealthy person, so I don't know how that's going to happen. That's a lot of Tats Lotto under the bridge, I suppose, or I don't know. But, when I have that birthday, then a month later I've worked 40 years non-stop. And
Right.
left school at 15.
That's a long career.
Worked in a fruit shed for 3 months. And then basically just turned 16 and have been a full-time worker ever since. My mother used to say, my brother did the same, you lost part of your childhood, which is what we did then.
Yep.
And even my
That's
dad...
a different time.
My dad's vintage, they started working at 14 and 13, smoking at 10, and, it's stupid things. And you think, can you imagine your own children
I know, you
carrying
can't
on like that?
think of it these days,
I look at mine, and Steffi is 26 and Courtney's 24. They're our babies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Jackie will ever listen to this, but she'd like them to stay there forever,
Yeah.
That's their home, and that's just how we are as a family. You just think that, we had our children and Jackie was their age and she had 2 children already, and married, and you think, I wouldn't consider that with mine, think, but I think everyone has their maturity at a different age.
Yeah,
100%. And I don't know, that's how our family is.
Yep.
No,
that's all good, mate. I appreciate that. I find being a superintendent, you know the course intimately. You've been here for 40 years, or you know the course extremely well. Have you got a favourite spot around the golf course, somewhere that just you like to go and visit from time to time, or it's you like golfers always talk about it, or somewhere that you know more than other people know? What's a special place in the morning or the afternoon? What's somewhere that stands out for you? Is there anywhere?
Look, I was lucky when Matt McLeod was here. He sort of let me have my head a little bit. So the surrounds of the greens are my baby. So collars. Okay. And, I'd played a lot in Melbourne, and they really love their short grass walk-offs to the next hole.
Yep.
Like it's all... And you miss the green by a metre, you miss it by 20.
Yep.
It just feeds.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
And I started mowing a few of those areas out that were always just, normal rough, which is fine. They look fine like that. And I just thought, I wonder what that would look like if I joined that tee with that green. So there's an area down the back there, and you might see it, and, I might take you there anyway.
Yeah.
Between 10 and 12 on the old, where I've mown mounds that we couldn't mow with a rough cover because they were too thick, and eventually I got through them at 10 mil. After a fair amount of effort.
After working at it, yep.
That all links together, and in the shadows or early morning dew when it's all off, I think that's the spot.
Nice.
Sun coming up or sun going down.
Yep.
And, it's not a native tree, but there's an oak tree there that sort of adds a bit.
Okay.
Sort of just in that corner, and I've swung around that through a hollow, up a hill. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one.
Nice.
That's a nice spot.
I'll be looking for that one, mate.
There is.
Have to show me.
I shouldn't tell you, but there's a spot when we were younger up the back of the west there that you can see out, but they can't see in.
Oh, right.
And,
okay.
If you ever thought, what I've had a gut full of what I'm doing here. there was Tony that works here, used to work at, I think it was at Metro, and they had what's called the Bat Cave.
The Bat Cave.
And it was to their rubbish heap, but the branches used to close behind you.
Oh, right. So you could never see.
And you don't know how long that guy was there. Yes. He also told me in the early days in Melbourne that there used to be sort of vagrants live on the course because they weren't fenced.
Right.
They
Yeah,
weren't
no,
fenced like
yeah,
that now.
yeah.
So he said we basically had a bloke used to live in the trees. Can you imagine that?
Oh dear, that's a great no, thanks. Not something I want to deal with in modern world.
No, like who is that
two
guy?
ways about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, we'll talk about the WebEx Play series. It's part of what we're here for. I said, John Deere are they're sponsors of the Women in Turf program in our industry. It's another reason that we're here to talk about that.
Yep.
What's it like hosting? You said the club wanted to get into it as a bit of a standout and give them a bit of an edge.
Yep.
Preparing this course, you know it so well. This is another level of presentation, another level of organising people, and you know, what's that like? And we'll get into a few other things along the way. What's that like the first time you had to do it?
The first time was interesting because it was just us, the crew, and look, it was. I said to Kane, who's my 2IC now, who missed the first one, and he came later. And one of the reasons he left Yarrawonga, where it was, he said, I wanted to get involved in that. And since then, we've sent him to all sorts of tournaments. He's going to live soon.
Oh, yeah. I'll be down
been
there.
A couple of Australian Opens and things and that, and he's really enjoying that. I think we only had 12ers, and I reckon I had 4 rookies, and I had blokes mowing wrong courses and learning machines.
On the fly.
You know, there was 3 of them that sort of started in December, and we were preparing a course in January.
Wow.
At the end of January. Look, I'm not going to pretend I didn't do 14 or 16-hour days for a month and whatever.
Yeah.
And look, but I think it's given me a few brownie points. You know what? He made that event.
Yeah.
Because he was prepared to put in. And I think I got great respect from the CEO because he thought, you know what? He took that tournament and he helped us achieve it. So to hear people say great things was really good. So then we got involved with Land HQ at the time, who became Hutch and Pearce now.
Yep.
And promised to get involved, and you know, so we did the deals and talked about it, and then they said, "Oh, well, we want to support you, because so we're going to bring 6 volunteers." And I nearly fell off my chair because I thought, Good. That's all right. I've done it with 12, but you know, having extra hands would be great.
Yep.
And then he said, and we want them all to be women from various places of Australia. And I went home and said to my wife, I really don't know if I want to be involved, because I was just expecting what could go. And that's how I always process everything.
Yep.
How's that going to go with the crew I've got? Like, I don't need that problem, you know, that happens because somebody said something or someone's upset or whatever. And look, I had plenty of sleepless nights about it, but Steve was a great support, and I had a Cody Beckett was the John Deere person at the time.
Yep.
And look, he was fantastic, and he made it easy. And look, we had some experienced hands, Martina and Penny from Sydney, who'd been greenkeeping a long time, both of them. And then a very eager crew. And I've got to admit that we're up to our 18th volunteer now. And the attitude the women have brought has just made it so much easier. And look, the event went well. The crew just mixed brilliantly. I was a bit worried about a couple of the boys that, you know, say a few things that, you know, you probably shouldn't say in front of your mother. And Bobby, the CEO, was, you know, counselling me along the way. And I think Penny put an article in that said it was the most welcoming shed she'd walked into. And I actually asked her, are you happy to be quoted as that? Because I didn't want that to cause any friction from anywhere else. And no, she said I meant it, and that's why I said it. So that was really good. And then it's evolved from there. But look, it is another layer of stress because, you know, when do you scarify your fairways? Are they going to be ready? You know, and I was driving around last week and I thought, I should have filled that hole, should have got stumps ground, should have done this, should have done that. Why didn't I pre-emerge in that? So there's 50 million things in my head that I think, why didn't I do that? Then I curse myself for not being organised enough to say, there's my to-do list that I start in August. Yeah. That, you know, by this date we can't have any, and don't cut any more trees down, just leave them. That sort of thing. But look, you know, I know quite a few of the pros through my former life, and they say nice things, which is they're always probably going to say to your face. But then I hear it other ways, and that helps.
Come back around.
Look, it's something we really look forward to, but I really look forward to it being over.
Yeah,
because I know that it's been delivered well or otherwise, and then we can move on. Because like we're in the heart of summer now, and it's not been easy. And the forecast for next week after the tournament is a string of 40-degree days still.
Yeah, wow. So it keeps going.
We need to provide something for that. So I'm always mindful of not butchering the joint just to provide, and not just to provide a PGA standard golf course.
Yeah, sure.
So
is it a proud thing to see your course lifted? Like I could go back to the 40 years, right?
Yeah.
To see this place rise to that level.
You know, there was a fair bit of heartburn amongst the members when the two clubs merged or were taken over, because that's what happened. You know, the sports club helped us out, and, you know, the debts were wiped, but we're now part of their umbrella.
Yep.
And there's always been a bit of heartburn about the golf club building not operating and whatever, but the WebEx gave the members something to be proud of. They were there volunteering, and look, we've got 85 members volunteering over this tournament, and,
wow.
and a lot of those people are in their 70s and spend 3 or 4 full days here during the tournament. But to have a group of professionals tell them how lucky they are for the facility, not just the golf course. Yeah, your course is so good, but your facilities are incredible, and they're the same ones that might have been a bit like, we don't have a clubhouse and, you know, that sort of thing. To give them some pride back in their club, and the commitment that sporties have given to golf by saying, we've brought this event to us because it's a great marketing thing for us, but look what we're doing for the course for you.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of a win-win, I see.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really gave them some pride of, look what people are saying. And then they see it on television, and it's filmed very kindly because it's at eye level, so it makes it look a bit greener than possibly it is.
And the contrast comes out in the cameras as well.
It's been presented well for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then people that have lived in the town have rung their mum and said, oh, look, it looked great on television. And even people that don't play.
Yeah.
You know, we had an event, we have a beach volleyball thing down at Thompson's Beach, which is a river beach.
Okay.
And people that lived in Cobram 30 years ago watch it only to see the beach.
Yeah,
don't really
right.
care. Don't even care.
Not worried about the sport.
So nostalgic about their own town, and I've heard the same. You know, and then some of the women that women in turf that have worked on the course said that my partner's watching golf. She's never ever watched golf or whatever.
Yeah.
And but only because she knows I'm there, or he knows I'm there, or whatever, or Dad's watching. Cause
100%.
I just want to see where you've been. And
sometimes from a member's perspective, and that goes for all of us as people, I think it carries a lot more weight when you hear a compliment from a stranger.
Oh, I think so.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when your members and yourself or the team or the female volunteers part of the women turf, when they hear it from someone they don't know or they know of but they've never met, that carries so much more weight because it's from someone who's not, you don't think is trying to say it to make you feel better.
I don't spend as much time out in the crew as I'd like to, you know, just basically working. So they hear it all, good, bad or otherwise.
Yep.
And I think most blokes don't bring back the negativity for no reason.
Yep.
You know, that's, you know, well, I don't know why you're doing it, you're wasting your time.
You
get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Don't get a lot of positives back. But look, our industry, and you would know this, no news is good news a lot of the time.
100%. Yep,
you know,
exactly. If it's silent, all's good.
It might not be the right way of looking at it, but, you know, the other 51 weeks of the year, Bobby, the CEO, reads all the reviews from people.
Yep.
And he said, that's one of my benchmarks is what are people saying about us? The ones that can be prepared to write, because they're generally critics. The ones that will fill out surveys and things.
That's it.
They're the ones that want to tell you something
100%.
that you don't want to hear.
Yeah,
you know?
that's why you don't say it. If you've had a good experience, you just go, that was great as expected, move on.
Or I'll tick the 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and if you've had a bad one, we'll let them know.
I'm going to tell them. You know, and you get some that will say, I'm only telling you because I think it'll help. I'm not being negative. It was just my experience. And they're really good ones. And you sort through the ones that you can nearly plot their way through the building. Oh, you know, your motel was no good. You know, and the course was no good. The carts weren't right, you know, and they mucked up our booking. And you think, well, we didn't. You just didn't come at the right time. But anyway, you know, customer's always right.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. From the women in turf perspective, you talked about the challenges having them in and what that's also done. Then once you've moved through it, it's been positive. It's been a good thing to have them here. And it's I've got to ask. I'll ask specifically, I suppose. Is there positive? Is there a different influence and a positive influence to having that different insight? And do they help in a different way? The energy coming into the team because they're fresh and young is that nice to have as part of it as well?
The energy the first year was great, but you're still only just working with each other.
Yep.
You know, and that's good. I was very thankful that everyone just took it for what it was, that we're going to have a big tournament, and I don't think they thought it was real until that 100-foot marquee got put up behind the 18th green, and then all the T signs went up all around the property, and we thought, what are we?
Yeah,
You know,
we're in the thick of this.
Real
This is
now.
happening.
This is real, and there's no way going back here.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or otherwise, our course is going to be on television.
Yeah.
Right. So then, when the women turned up, it just brings a fresh dynamic because, I think it's just the mixed gender events. Everyone's a little better behaved because sometimes the boys can be pretty ratty and
Sure.
and that's the work crew or just men in sport in general.
Yep.
But I think when the females are involved, I think everyone's attitude is just a little better.
Yep.
I think everyone's on a bit better behaviour. You probably shouldn't need to be that way, but that's just how it's sort of, to me, that's how it naturally is. And look, they're away from home, and it's not that easy. Not everyone enjoys being away. And I was looking, we had a crew this year, and there's a couple there that are a little more reserved than others, which is fine. That's how they are. But they didn't know each other.
Yep.
They didn't know me. They didn't know Corey, who's their coordinator. They don't know our crew.
Yep.
They don't know our course. Some don't know the John Deere equipment because they use the other.
Yep.
And there's a real blend. So it's a difficult thing to do, is to lob yourself in that environment, and you've either got to be an incredibly strong person or you might struggle a bit. But to project positivity at everything we're doing, like if you're just going to empty bins at some other course, but to be happy about, like, just think, oh, good, I'm here and I'm enjoying the experience. When they pick up the turf magazines themselves over the next 6 months and see their beaming faces and quotes of this and that, you think, yeah, that's pretty good. So, I think, it's been great because every intake, and this is our 18th person, 3 years, has always brought something good. And I know we've got the other part of this. Yes, obviously you're going to do some talking too, but they've got some PR stuff to do for John Deere.
Yep.
They've got some PR stuff to do with the PGA as well that want to talk a bit more about it this year, thankfully. They're a bit worried about what to say. And I said to them, look, it's easy to talk about yourself because who do you know better than that? And one of them said, oh, look, I just don't have much to talk about. And then I said, oh, yeah. She said, oh, I've been mowing green since I was 15. I said, that's your story.
There you go. Yep.
That's your story. Why? How? Is it dad? Is it...
Yeah. How did you get
live
to
next to the
there?
course. Did you know the member or the super was your uncle, or he needed help so you pitched in?
Yeah.
Like the first year I was very short and my wife Jackie took a few weeks off and she mowed fairways for me. So, just those things, each one of those women will have a story, and interesting to see what their answers to stuff is.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get asked over and over about
100%.
what, where, how, what, why, and it'll be interesting to see what they come out with.
Yeah,
So, I've only known them for 2 days at the moment at this point of recording, so it's a bit hard to know them well.
Yeah,
so,
100%. Do you... what's a way that I'm trying to ask the question? I'm thinking, again, I go back to you've had a long career. You've seen a lot of change. There's been a lot of changes in our industry over that time. We talk about machinery, we talk about irrigation, we talk about technology. Seeing women come into, I've talked about this with other supers, and I've got a pretty strong stance on the fact that our industry is crying out for labour. We've got a lot of struggles with shortage of labour, and I think if you turn a blind eye to 50% of the potential workforce, I think you're a fool. And I'll say that out loud. I think women have a great deal to offer our industry, and this is a huge thing, and I'll always talk positively about this regardless of who's behind it at this point in time, and it's great that John Deere are doing so. What are the changes like you've seen with women getting into the industry? How do you see that from your perspective, those changes coming on?
Well, I grew up in a male household, so there was just my brother and I and mum and dad.
Yep.
And just with the way life worked, I have 2 daughters. So I'm heavily engaged in women's activities anyway. And I just think the little bit of a toe in the water, if you like, of having women on the crew, I just find the women probably not saying that right. The women probably having a higher attention to detail.
I've heard that a lot.
And I think that's not saying the guys don't do it, but I think probably will follow structure better rather than looking for is there an easier way?
Yeah, okay.
This is the best way we've decided. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, look, I talk about it with Bobby all the time. He said, we need to recruit. He said, I think the culture is just better in general when it happens. If you have and if we were going to do it, I'd love to have a pair of women join the crew so they're not feeling isolated. I'd have now, knowing what we know, I think someone could come in, given the attitude that both do during this event. I think I'd have no problems with it. I'm not sure if that's answered what you were talking about, but and I think the women that do the job are happy to say, and it's true, there's nothing we do every day that any woman couldn't do.
Yeah. Yep.
And the days of having to lift 50 kilo fertiliser bags into a spreader when I was 15 and blokes laughing at you because
you couldn't you were struggling, you're battling to lift it up.
Incredibly heavy.
Yep.
We've gone past that.
Yeah.
We've gone away from using 200 litre drums. We're just going to use 10s whenever we can. And we've done sort of talking with Matt at Living Turf, and we've sort of come up with a deal that they're sort of the same price, a little bit more space, but so much easier. 10 litres in rather than struggling with 20 litres of liquid in either hand and hoping you can get it in the sprayer without dropping it.
And it's not these days are modern manual handling and workplace safety and all that doesn't mean it's not being tailored for gender specific. It's because we need to be a safer workplace in general. I just had Kate Rainsbury on Keeper of the Greens last episodes, and she talks about her passion for being a greenkeeper. She absolutely loves what she does.
Yep.
And I got to be honest, and having spoken to her and also spoken to Sophie Warren down at Glenelg, I don't know that I've ever spoken to a young person as a greenkeeper with more energy and passion about it. I've spoken to lots of young guys, but I don't think I've ever heard them speak with such energy and passion about what they do. And I just think that they bring a different element into the space. And I've had a female working on my crew in the past, and I just think that I go back to there's nothing wrong with having, in my opinion, it's great to have women in the team, and I think that there's positives to do so, and we're calling out for the labour. That's my opinion.
It's disappointing that we even have to talk about it, to me.
Yeah.
That anyone that should be able to do it now.
Yep.
Maybe when I was a young fella, we talked about fertiliser bags and stuff. Yeah, it probably was a bit restrictive. But I've asked a couple of the volunteers this year, was it the job you wanted or was it just any job?
Yeah.
Which just happens in apprenticeships.
Sure.
That mum or dad say there's a job there and you're putting in for it.
Yep.
Or they arrange it with somebody that they know that you get that job. And whether you got the passion, we're about to try and think about, we try and have apprentices every year, of course, like everyone does. And I'm just not sure. I've got a couple young casuals, and I'm just not sure that that's really their thing.
Yep.
Don't start if no intentions are really going on with it.
Yeah.
And to hear a couple of the women say, no, this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's
and look, there's no doubt I'm going to show those guys, and I reckon it goes a bit back. I was talking about golf before. You've got to sort of prove your stripes, and then once you earn that respect, you think, you know what, she's better than me at most things.
Yeah.
I'm following her. I'm follow her lead. And I'm going to pump Sophie's tyres up a bit. She came here as the most experienced volunteer last year, even though
Sophie Warren.
She was much younger than most.
Yep.
But you can see she already, through deeds, could lead the crew. I could have sent her out and said, right, if she's happy, everyone will be happy with it. So, it was... Yeah, so, look, I don't know. I've never had a female put in for a job other than a gardener or a part-timer, which is disappointing. Third year now, hopefully enough people locally see it and you think, you know what, I don't want to be a carpenter and I'm not an indoor worker. Why don't I give that a go and see what it's like? Yeah. Because obviously, every year for a week there's these females that are working on this course. It goes well.
And
that's what we're hoping. And Bobby's really keen. He said, see if you can recruit one of the best ones.
Yeah, sure.
And just see, and if they're looking for a tree change or something like that, well, we're open. Look, let's be honest. We see each other for a week and it's a bit of a honeymoon and everyone's happy and laughing and that, but every crew, you all carry your baggage and things, and there's things to work through with all crews.
Yeah, so, 100% there are. Yep. Now, your daughter, you mentioned Steffi.
Steffi,
yep.
She's a WPGA Tour player.
Yep.
She did a traineeship, which is rare for the women. They don't they do a 3-year traineeship and basically an apprenticeship to be a golf pro. When I say that to people, they go, what? golf pro. So, but that's running businesses and stuff like that. And look, she nearly won the national event in her first year within about 3 months, and then everyone got hit by COVID.
Yep.
And basically, it meant you couldn't compete, and all those things, And I think that derailed her a bit. And she took 5 years to finish that off, but it didn't matter because with the women, there's not as many players. And she had the opportunity to go and play proper golf. So she's been touring and working here as a qualified pro. So she's been on the women's tour now for 3 or 4 years. So
and she's playing in the WebEx?
She's playing in the WebEx this year. Last year she finished in the top 5, which was her best result easily in her career. And to do that at home, I think because she was just over the moon. The year before she made the cut, was in a reasonable spot, had a bit of a blow at the last day, was pretty upset, but, she was passionate enough to come back and do it. Look, it's not easy. I tell the guys, professional golf's a difficult thing.
Well, you've been in the thick of playing.
I try and describe to them. There was 12 guys the first year that worked here on the crew for the event. I said, well, what happens is you turn up on Monday, you prepare well, do the work. You compete on Thursday and Friday, and then I'm going to tell 8 of you, you're not getting paid.
That's brutal, right?
And so then on the weekend 4, you're going to come to work,
yep.
and whoever works the best is going to get paid the most. And then next week you're going to go drive 3 hours away, do it
all again.
And then do it again, and then do it again. Now, who can live like that?
Not many people would want to go through that, would they?
That's it. And I said that's the brutality of professional golf.
Yeah.
Who competes? Like no AFL or rugby league player would take the field if they think, oh, geez, if I'm not in the top 6, I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
Why would I do it? So
I agree.
But they pocket the money themselves. Where team sports, it's a big pot. It's not the same comparison, but just trying to show the guys that didn't know much about golf, why some people look frustrated and angry on the course because they watch some bloke snap his club under a tree while no one was looking, and because that's their life, and it's hard to generate any savings. We complain about our industry not being paid enough. Well, try getting paid nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. It's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, that's right. So we always hope she does well, and
is this her home club?
Cobram Barooga is where she's born and bred also,
Yep.
And it's a home club, and they treat her incredibly well. Bobby, to his credit, treats her like a daughter as well, and has always looked after her interests incredibly well and better than we could have ever hoped.
Yep.
So she's popular with the members, obviously, because she's their girl. And Cobram Barooga has been our life.
Yep.
It's been my life since I was 10, when I was allowed to start playing in the comps and things. I've worked here. I was allowed to stay here even though things weren't going great, and now I'm the super again. My daughter has been employed here. She's become a professional. The members fawn over her when she comes home and follow her page. And,
that's so good.
And help out. A couple of local guys chip in a little bit to help with travelling.
Yeah, wow.
My wife's just rejoined the club as an employee, so there's only one missing in the...
Yeah, right.
And but, that's what country communities
It's a community base. Yeah, it is.
And they had they'll never see her without anything, Steffi, because that's, country courses don't have this bank of good players. They usually have one standout person, and everyone lives their life through their professional journey, hopefully, and they won't see the fact that, she had to give it away. But the club employs her when she's not touring. She's always got a job to come back to.
Wow.
So
Cobram is really...
Some freedom.
This golf club is a real community. It's almost a family. It's part of the town is.
You obviously talk to other people, and I'm sure every single club will tell you about that person that they're looking after, or that special golfer, or whatever.
Yep.
That, oh yes, we sort of put our arms around that person and make sure that they can maybe try and do what it is. I don't know. Maybe she'll win a tournament on the European Tour and go touring, or what's next. So they've got a string of WebExes, and then they've got some co-sanctioned European Tour events. Karen Lunn has done an amazing job of trying to get a fledgling circuit going for the female golfers.
Yeah, she has done an incredible job. She's worked hard at getting a lot of things done.
I reckon from Steffi's first year, they've given them an opportunity that if you play well enough, you can make your way through and do okay and move on to a different tour. Cassie Porter, etc.
Yep.
They all cut their teeth
Yep.
through the WPGA a bit first.
Yep.
and even, Kelsey Bennett, for example, has just got her European status. She's here this week to play.
Yeah, right.
She's not starting yet in Europe, but she knows this is where to cut some teeth, make a bit of cash to go with you. But New South Wales Golf have, boosted women's golf, and they've given them 5 qualifiers to play in for the New South, to the people
the
that
regional qualifiers
aren't going to be exempt, to give them a chance to get in. So there's been some really good moves in the women's golf space. There's no doubt about it. And, of course, WebEx has came along as well. Not easy to compete against the guys, but just get up and tee it out, and tee it up and see what happens.
There's been some great wins. We've seen Hannah Green win, and we've seen some fantastic
Let's be honest,
competition.
We're incredibly blessed. When Hannah Green turned up the first year, we're like, are you fair dinkum? She's the US Open champion.
I know, right?
And
big fan, but I am a big fan of Hannah Green, so I don't think she listens to the pod, but there you go.
No, but if you do, Hannah, we're incredibly grateful, and maybe at the other end of her career, she thinks, you know what, I'm not going to follow that, but look, she's got a massive future, look, it is difficult for the women's game, isn't it? There are periods where you're probably not going to be able to play because you've got to think about what age I'd like to have children and can I... Because there's been a couple early retirements on the US Tour last year.
Yep.
So because of that. But, we're very proud of her. Probably don't say it enough. She might listen to this and be pleased with that, But, families are families, and there's things said that no one likes to each, things that happen and all the rest. But... I think when the chips are down, she knows that we're really helping, I hope. So I caddy sometimes, but...
Are you an overbearing dad caddy?
No, and look,
or does she put you in your place?
I probably walked away a little bit from her amateur career because I think she needed to just do it. And I'm not saying I had a shadow, but in amateur golf I did, especially in Victoria.
Yep.
I've never been a professional.
Yep.
So she's gone further than I've ever done. My only move could have been, national squad amateur. If I'd gone down the professional line, I probably wouldn't have $1 to rub together. Like many of my contemporaries that had a go, and it's a lot harder than you think.
Yep.
When I finished greenkeeping, that was 4 years, and I was only 20 then, and someone said, you want to do a traineeship? And I thought, well, that's another 3 years of apprentice wages. That's 7 years as an apprentice. I wouldn't have the things I have now, family, my wife Jackie and the kids and whatever. My life would have taken a different path.
Yep.
And it could have been much worse.
Yeah.
So, you got to be content.
Yeah.
Got to be content. So
no, mate, it's I sit from the outside and hear you talk about Steffi, your daughter, playing as a professional here. And I wanted to talk about Steffi because you're her father, who's superintendent of a home course. You're setting it up for a tournament that she's playing in. The club's hosting a WebEx Play Series event. I mean, it's men and women playing together. We've got the Women in Turf coming here to work as well. There is so many good things about this in a group setting of both men and women, male and female. And here you are as the epitome of that standalone moment, and you're the superintendent of the golf course, and your daughter is a professional playing in the event. I mean, what a great story.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I can't watch her scores when she's playing because I sort of get a bit flat during the day if she's not going well.
Of course. You're riding
only through disappointment.
Yeah.
So it's not easy when the tournament's happening outside my office door here to just avoid everything.
Sure.
So her mother, Jackie, watches every shot while she's here, and I might take a couple of days off, go to the Vic Open and just casually walk around or caddy if she wants it. And, but I've got to be really careful I don't try and play my frustrated wannabe professional career through her. It's her. She's got to forge her own way because towards the end of her amateur career, I said, you've just got to go and do it yourself. You need to learn to speak for yourself and all the rest. So that's what we did. So whether she thought, he's probably happy not to see me there. I don't know. I don't know.
Look, mate, it's a great thing to look forward to here with the WebEx for you for many fronts. But from the outside looking in, mate, you yourself, your team, I look forward to seeing day one. I'm here for day one. I look forward to seeing the Pro-Am, which is tomorrow. Seeing the courses. I've never seen them, mate. I'm excited to see them around. Hopefully you get to show me some bits and pieces as well. Congratulations, mate, on your career. Thank you for sharing your career and your family stories as well. I really do appreciate that. Mate, you've got an incredible amount of experience here being a local from this area. You know the region, you know the land, you know the people, you know the community, and you know the club. And all of that's rolled up into one Terry Vogel, mate. So I think I really appreciate you sharing all that.
No problem.
Congratulations on everything you've achieved, and third time for the WebEx Player Series here. Is that right?
It's our fourth.
Fourth
We're about
time
to start. Yeah.
Fourth time around.
Yeah.
Yep. And being able to host that and bring all that up and in terms of the quality of the golf course ready for a tournament. Congratulations to yourself, your team, your family, and everything that you're doing. Also caring for the women in turf here to have the volunteers, mate. I thank you so much for being on John Deere Golfkeeper of the Greens and the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Wowee, ladies and gentlemen, how good was that? Like I said, I just felt so comfortable chatting with Terry, and the way that he opened up about what it's like in a regional area looking after a golf course, what it means to the membership, what their plans are, their future plans, the way that the club is thinking, led from CEO Bobby Brooks, Terry himself as superintendent, the people on his team, the people surrounding the club, the community, everything on the whole at Barooga for Cobram Barooga Golf Club. And I shouldn't just say Barooga because it's Cobram Barooga for a reason, and that is it's a twin town setup in a sense. That's what Cobram's on the Victorian side, Barooga's on the New South Wales side of the border. There's a lot of twin towns along the Murray from east to west, and you often see in Cobram Barooga is another one of those twin towns, and they support the golf club so well, both sides. It's a wonderful facility. It's an incredible site. Having seen the golf course, I can now vouch for it being, I really, really loved what I saw, and I didn't get a chance to play golf. Obviously, it was a tournament, but it was great to hear Terry talk, and I know everything about throughout his career. Like I said, it just brings a smile to my face, and maybe that's because my eldest at home, our daughter Savannah, I'm looking at what her future might look like, thinking about where, what she's going to want to do in life as she grows up. I don't know. I just smile every time I hear Terry talk about his family and the way he did that in that interview. And you probably noticed how Terry understates how he works and also himself a little bit. And I can tell you Terry is very good at what he does and clearly very good at leading the team on course at Cobram Barooga Golf Club. And he has a great team around him. A club that punches above its weight, in my opinion, is how I view Cobram Barooga Golf Club. I really didn't know what to expect, and hearing the WebEx Players Series was there, being held there, I knew it was going to be great, but it really is fantastic. It really is. Thanks again to Terry for his time and openness on the interview. I really do appreciate that, Terry. So thank you so much, mate. And I hope everyone listening gets a real insight. And I'm sure there's lots of things you can relate to in that conversation. There's a lot that I could relate to, not only in myself, to Terry a little bit as well, but his career, what it's like working at a club. There's so many ups and downs. You got the full spectrum, and you can hear about how the club is now moving forward in this incredible way, in this incredible fashion, with some of these amazing people involved in the club itself, and the leadership group, and the management, and the board. They're all so passionate about their club and where it's going to go, where they want to take it, and how they see its future. And I really think it has a wonderful future ahead. And it's great seeing, Cobram Barooga on television. Who doesn't like that? It's fantastic. And as a bit of a footnote, I can also say that I'm a fan of the Vogel grass for the tournament. So might be controversial to some of the locals who are listening, some of the members, but having seen it around on the 18th that Terry was talking about and some of the other areas out on course, I really think it's a great touch to test the professionals. Now, also to remember is that the old course there that Terry talked about is a Vern Morecambe design, as he was telling me. So it's a great layout. We know the work Vern Morecambe has done throughout Melbourne and Victoria, regionally as well. And he's obviously got up to there at Cobram Barooga and laid out the old course that's there. And it really is a great test of golf. And that's the tournament course. That's the course the tournament was held on. It's a sensational golf course. And I'm a fan of both the courses, and they've both got different experiences. But the old course, the movement in the ground and dunes there along that region of the Murray, it's wonderful. It really has some really good flow about it. Lots of wonderful features on the ground in the way that some of those holes are routed. It really is fantastic. So if you get a chance, get down to Cobram Barooga, ladies and gentlemen, and go and experience Cobram Barooga Golf Club. Thank you once again to Terry. I really appreciated your time, mate. And thank you to everyone for listening. Lots of clickables in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure you go and check them all out. Also, please share this around. The more shares, the more people hear it, the more areas it gets out to, the more people that can enjoy and understand all the different facets of Australian golf. And I really do appreciate your help and support by doing so and passing it around. Please like, share, and subscribe is the tagline that everyone finishes off with. So I do appreciate all your help and support. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, everyone out there. If you're at Cobram Barooga for the WebEx Players Series Murray River, I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to next year. Thank you to Terry. Thank you to the Women in Turf. Thank you to everyone involved. Thank you to John Deere for getting me down there. And and don't forget, we've got a new one coming soon with a revamped version of Walking the Fairways. So you're going to want to make sure you're involved with that. I'll sign off with it one more time for this episode of John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens. You hit 'em clean, we'll keep 'em green, and I'll catch up with you next week.